But if you're being if you're being gang raped by organized gangs, mainly 90%, 92% Pakistani Muslim men right here and now, that's of no interest. I mean, I'm very sorry if you were molested by some no-name Radio 1 disc jockey 55 years ago, but why is that a bigger deal than the ongoing rape of thousands of little girls right now?
And what you're saying goes right to the core of this issue. It goes to the core of the media outlets, the mainstream media, the printing presses not viewing victims as newsworthy. They don't sell papers. Their pain and their abuse doesn't sell papers like tabloid gossip or a Love Islanders pregnancy announcement would. They aren't the kitschy, glamorous, high stakes, jet-setting tabloid paper sellers that the mainstream media want them to be. And so it's easier to brush them under the rug and say, oh, you're just a child prostitute, you were asking for it, this was somehow your fault. It's easier to blame the victim than it is to truly address the core of this issue, which is when it comes to child sexual exploitation, predominantly British Pakistani men raping predominantly white working class girls. When it comes to child sexual abuse in general, which this is the reason why the IICSA took so long to publish its final report, is because it looked at every major institution in the country. It looked at all different types of child sexual abuse, so in the family, online grooming, which is, obviously a very, very large concern. One in 6 girls and 1 in 20 boys are sexually abused by the age of 16. And I think that the media and those in power, those in positions of power, their continued ignorance, willful ignorance to this issue is what is putting young children, little girls and boys, in continued danger. They are, in my opinion, just as guilty as the paedophiles and predators that held them down and raped them themselves.
Well, I'm glad you put it that forcefully about being held down and raped. When I went to Rotherham, I think this is 6 years ago now, 6.5 years ago, something like that, I got off the train and I walked down into the town centre. And I spoke to about, I think the first 7 people I spoke to, 4 of them knew someone who had been groomed, as they call it, and caught in this trap that's in which it goes on for so many years that they're organised networks. They use things like in Rotherham, the mini cabs, the taxis. In Oldham, they use the so-called hooker bars or whatever they're called. And because it goes on for years, these become kind of formal networks and organizations. They all know who's in them. They all know who's running them. And yet, as in your case, 97% of them are still walking around out there as free men.
Exactly. And this sort of crime has been so normalized through decades of inaction and ignorance that young girls like myself don't know any different. We don't know that the hand on our thigh isn't normal. We don't know that the little secrets and the sneaking into our bedrooms at night isn't normal. We don't know that the taxi driver giving us a curry and a bottle of vodka isn't normal. We have no real normal, healthy frame of reference for how adults should treat us, because it's all we see around us. For me personally, I remember. We used to, in Telford, we used to joke about the fact that we were the teenage pregnancy capital of the UK at one point. We would joke about how, oh yes, every girl in Telford will get pregnant at some point before they're 20. These were morbid, horrific jokes that young girls and young boys would be making because we didn't know any different. We didn't realise that it wasn't normal for little girls to be groomed, raped, abused, and even murdered. And myself personally, I was being abused at the time, and I'll admit, even I poked fun at myself at the pain that I had gone through, because in my head I had been so conditioned to believe that, this is nothing special. You're nothing special. You don't deserve any support or any help or to be believed for the abuse that you've suffered because it's your fault.